The APC today announced the Governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, as the Director General of the APC and Tinubu Campaign Organization. The PDP and the presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar today announced Daniel Bwala and Senator Dino Melaye as spokespersons of the party's campaign council. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimaloye in Abuja. Let's continue our countdown over the strike action by the university lecturers. An action that has been on for way over 170 days. It's now 177 days actually, 173 or 4 days, depending on how you're counting it. But yeah, the lecturers are being out of classroom in most of the federal universities in the country. And they began their strike actions, now making students stay away from the classroom, keeping them idle. The standoff between the federal government and the university lecturers continue, and the students continue to be idle and away from the classroom. President Buhari is giving a 2 weeks ultimatum, which, when we wondered, that since elapsed, and the Minister of Education has been asked to ensure that some of the issues are to be resolved. Nigerians are now looking forward to the stakeholders getting their acts together to resolving what has become a national embarrassment. Well, let's tell you, first and foremost, that the All Progressives Congress APC and its presidential candidate, Bwala Tinubu, today has made a decision to appoint Governor of Plateau State, Mr. Simon Lalong, as a chairman of the party's presidential campaign council. The Minister of Labor, State for Labor, Minister Festus Keyamo, senior advocate, will serve as a spokesperson of the campaign council. The party chairman, Abdullah Adamu, the presidential candidate, Bwala Tinubu, and his deputy, Senator Kashim Shettima, all met with President Buhari, where the announcement was made at the presidential villa. The issue of same-faith ticket also came up in the conversation. Take a listen to some of the candidates, the party chairman, after they left the meeting with President Buhari.
Individuals that are going to be playing different roles within the organizational structure of the campaign outfit. The person who is going to be the DG, the Director General of the APC Presidential Campaign Organization, is His Excellency, seated by my left here, Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State. He will lead as Campaign Director General. We have in the campaign secretariat, we have an interim spokesperson of the campaign organization in the person of Honorable Festus Keyamo, who is very familiar, is Minister in the Federal Executive Council of Nigeria, the Minister of Labor.
You've heard from my national chairman, and you have heard from the spokesperson and the announcement. We are happy with it. That is why you see the leadership cadre. And we are able to confirm to you that we've had the buy-in of Mr. President, the leader of the party.
In 2011, the presidential candidate and the vice presidential candidate of the ACN, both of them were Muslims. Nobody raised any eyebrow. Now, the opposition have seen a winning combination, and they are petrified deep down to the marrow of their bones. What Nigeria needs right now is a leadership that will drive the transformation process. And take it or leave it, the truth that sets men free, according to H.S. Aga, is most often the truth that men prepare not to hear.
So you heard from the party chairman, the candidate, and his running mate there. In the coming days, of course, you'll be hearing more about some of these persons. Well, when we come back, after serving you with a political roundup, you get to hear some of the spokespersons of the PDP tonight on the program. Stay with us as we serve you with some of the political roundup stories.
The National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party is meeting all former publicity secretaries of the party to draft an effective communication strategy that will help the PDP win the elections in 2023. The PDP leadership says the meeting is imperative owing to the wrong perception of the PDP, which has been created in the minds of citizens since the party lost power at the center in 2015. The national chairman of the PDP, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, is hoping that the new communication strategy will help the party to win the presidency in 2023.
I'm coming here to listen to you and to get you together to craft the necessary strategies for us to convey to the Nigerian people the best message.
The governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party in Taraba State, Agbukefa, says his aspiration to become the #1 citizen of the state is to ensure good governance and to make the life of the citizens of the state better, and not as a means of enriching himself. Mr. Agbukefa has described himself as an instrument that God has prepared to make the state one of the most developed in the country.
You can see it from the crowd that people are hopeful, and our people have seen what is going to deliver them, and because of the trust and the confidence that they have in me, that's why they took out in their numbers.
A political pressure group named National Agenda for Greater Asiwaju is advocating for full participation of women in politics and the need to vote for credible candidates. The group says its aim is to educate and enlighten participants to take part actively in politics and vote for credible candidates that will improve on good governance across board. The Adamawa State Governor Umar Ofintiri has unveiled a female running mate, Professor Kaletawa Farauta, the Vice Chancellor of Adamawa State University, for the 2023 governorship elections on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. Governor Fintiri described the choice of Professor Farauta as a painstaking strategy for gender sensitivity in addition to her expertise, which will add tremendous value to the campaign of the PDP.
As I speak to you, our great party has submitted both my name and the running mate to INEC for the election.
The preparation for the 2023 general election is now in top gear as the Independent National Electoral Commission says it is putting every effort in place to ensure credible elections. Addressing journalists in Umuahia, Abia State, the National Commissioner on Voter Education, Mr. Festus Okoye, says the Commission is determined to deploy high-power technology to minimize human interferences during next year's elections.
There are some of our polling units that have up to 3,000 registered voters, and we want to redistribute voters to the contiguous polling units.
And the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has announced the appointment of 7 members of the State Executive Council. The new members were appointed as special advisors. They were sworn in at an event held in the State Banquet Hall, Alausa, Lagos. 5 of the appointees are newcomers who filled in vacant positions following the voluntary resignation of previous occupants. 2 who previously resigned from the cabinet were returned to take back their positions.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's official kickoff time for us to get into a conversation tonight. Let's begin by letting you know that the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party and the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has appointed Senator Dino Melaye and Dr. Daniel Bwala, spokesperson to the presidential candidate of the PDP for the 2023 presidential campaign. Dino Melaye is a politician who served Kogi State in the National Assembly once, in the House of Reps, and also as a senator. And Daniel Bwala is a Borno State-born lawyer who practices his profession here in Abuja. Till recently, he was a member of the APC until he left due to reasons that we might be understanding more of that tonight. That information was made public by a statement released by Atiku's media advisor, Paul Ibe, that the two appointments, in fact, will take immediate effect. Let's get to know how things are playing out in the Atiku camp. I'm being joined by one of the spokespersons of the Atiku Campaign Council, Dr. Daniel Bwala. He joins us virtually from London. Thank you so much, Mr. Bwala, for joining us tonight. I guess congratulations might be in order for your appointment, considering the fact that you are a new face in the PDP and you are being made the spokesperson of the presidential campaign. How did that come to you? Is it premeditated? Is it been long coming? Have they been talking to you before you left the APC?
Well, thank you for having me, and good evening to Nigerians. I'm excited with the prospect of engagement in this 2023 election because, quite frankly, anybody who is in Nigeria or believes and loves Nigeria will readily know that we're in a perilous time. We're in a trying time in Nigeria, and we cannot afford to sit in the sidelines and assume that things will change in Nigeria unless and until we play our part in the nation building. I'm excited with the prospect of representing the interests of Atiku Abubakar, someone whom, even when I was in APC, I have my highest regards for. I have never ceased to mention his capacity. And in fact, I remember sometime in the build-up to 2019 election, I said that he was going to give a good run to President Muhammadu Buhari. Now we're going into the 2023 election, and it appears from all the candidates standing, he is the most experienced. And if you look at the problem we face as a country, you will appreciate the honor and the privilege of representing interest in ensuring that he wins the election to bring back our country on the path of honor and path of unity. Because as it stands, the country is divided and there is a political party that is further dividing the fault lines in Nigeria.
Now, give us an understanding. You perhaps have stated these in some fora. What led to your exit from the APC?
So right. Everybody knows how committed. Can you hear me? Everybody knows how committed I've been.
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
With APC. Right, and and in fact, when I participated, I don't want to sound boastful, but I must say that I was one of the leading individuals that campaigned and supported the emergence of the flag bearer of APC, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, because in that party, I believed he was the most qualified person at the time. I was pushing for him. All of the individuals that surround him now were even against him, and then he emerged. But unfortunately, they came up with a policy that is not unifying. It is not a policy that builds consensus. It's not a policy that reflects the intent of the Constitution, because the Constitution is clear about the principles of diversity, the principles of fair play, the principles of inclusivity and inclusion. So they took a decision that I felt contradicted my faith and conviction. And on that basis, I decided to resign from the party. And after I resigned, I discovered that for us to unite Nigeria, I have to play a role in ensuring that APC does not win the election 2023. Thankfully, the 2023 election is a referendum on APC. In America, after every 8 years of any presidential election, the referendum is always on the party that was in governance. If you remember, Bill Clinton did 8 years, and then there was a referendum. And even though he did well in the economy, but so many things went wrong, and America decided a different path. When George Bush ruled for 8 years, Americans came together and chose another path because they were not comfortable with the path that George Bush was leading them. Barack Obama came and did 8 years, and Americans became dissatisfied with the path he was leading them. And that's why even when he presented Hillary Clinton, who won the highest lawful vote, but through the Electoral College, she was defeated. But intriguing, this time around, the awareness in America became so strong that they didn't have to wait for 8 years in the case of Donald Trump, and they had to make a change. The whole world is looking at Nigeria. This is going to be the 8th year of APC. No excuses, no longer the doctrine or rhetoric of we came, we found this, we inherited. Because even if you join university as a Part 1 student, you will know that after 8 years, you are expected to be a medical doctor. If you join the department as a law student, by 8 years, you are fully qualified to practice as a lawyer. 8 years is enough for any administration, even if you are starting from a scratch, to be able to bring the full shape and image of what you intend to do. Unfortunately, after getting to 8 years now, the question Nigerians will ask themselves is, has APC taken us further or backwards? And I hold the view that the first few years of APC, they did well. President Muhammadu Buhari, whom I supported, but the last 4 years has now taken the Nigerian people further back. And that is where we are today. And you can see that because of the poor performance of the government, even the campaign before they started, they are beginning to disassociate themselves from him. But what they don't know is that the party and the candidate to take over, they are all inseparable. They are like an umbilical cord. No excuse, no basis. APC, Nigerians are going to score them.
Let me jump in quickly, Ms. Bwala. A lot of people who have followed you and seen how vigorously you've campaigned for the APC might be surprised at a sudden switch from the APC to the PDP. You have explained that it's based on your faith. But as soon as your appointment was announced and that of Senator Dino Melaye, today there was a joke that I saw somewhere that said, this is a Christian appointment. Dino Melaye is a Christian. Daniel Bwala is also a Christian.
Yeah,
I think
it's an interesting thing. If you look at it's an interesting thing. If you look at Atiku Abubakar, you will see that he's surrounded by, he's a nationalist. He's surrounded by Nigerians from all walks of life, from different religion, tribe, and background. Now, 2 of the appointments have just been released, but I understand that before today, there were appointments that were released before now, and they cut across various religions. I can tell you without missing words, Atiku Abubakar is the last politician in Nigeria you can accuse for being nepotistic or for being a religious bigot. Even the fiercest critics can tell you that. If you look at the team that surround him at the moment, you have even less of northerners. The people that surround him and they are making the movement. Now, I know of some persons who currently operate as mercenaries, political mercenaries and jobless buffoon, like one that wrote an article against me a few days ago. They are operating as mercenaries because, let me give you an example, Mr. Sheun. Somebody said that he left because he wanted an appointment with Atiku. What they don't know is that I left an appointment already guaranteed for me by the flag bearer of APC as a presidential spokesman. These were his promises to me directly, personal, and in his car. And I understood when he gave me these promises that even governors could not extract commitment like that. I came from a comfort position. And it's not about comfort. By taking that decision, if I tell you in terms of economic loss of the cases I'm even doing for the party, but you have to come to a point in your life where you look at the general good of the people. Now, they play religious politics and they flip it and they say it is the PDP that are doing it. But you can see how they fake bishops. And when
let's get it clearly.
They have decided
let's get it
bishops.
clearly. You said, let's get it clearly, that Bola Tinubu promised that you're going to be the spokesperson of his campaign. Is that what you said?
Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the flag bearer of APC, promised me that he was going to make me the presidential spokesperson for his campaign. And he made the promise a few weeks before the primaries. And I have witnesses that know themselves and they are of high repute in government, in the party, and around him. And this is not even a dispute. So I'm saying that on record because if what I said is not true, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu must be seeing the interview today. And my memory of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a sweet memory. I have my highest regard and respect for him. I said, even in this election, I will never engage in maligning his image and character. There are people that will try to tempt you to do that. My last memory of him was a sweet memory where he gave me regard that governors and senators didn't get, and I respect that. But this is not about me and Asiwaju. This is about Nigeria.
So let's get another thing clearly. So you mentioned that you were made a promise to be the spokesperson of Bwala Tinubu, but now you've chosen to be with the PDP. Did you get, or clarify to us, did you get a promise before you move? Because it's going to lead me to the next question, whatever you say, based on evidence that are available, whether or not you extracted a commitment of this present role that you have gotten from the PDP and Atiku Abubakar.
So it is intriguing and even funny for someone to assume because of the speed with which I am appointed. I think what it goes to show is that while PDP recognize grace, unction, and anointing, and are able to reward what they see and celebrate, APC are not able to do that, or they use people. This is the 7th year I have worked for the party and for the government of Muhammadu Buhari. You have never had me complain, but I've never benefited 1 naira. And I'm saying that on the record. Out of patriotism and commitment, I kept doing what I was doing. And who knows if they had not made the decision to do this divisive ticketing for the presidential election. But I think that God works in mysterious way, and he has his own way of revealing things before they become worse. Because not until after that decision was made that we began to see the colors of people the more. Isn't it intriguing that 2 days ago or 3 days ago, you saw one of them, the national chairman in a church, shouting, "Praise the Lord, hallelujah," with a car. If they think that the religious people, the Christians, would not matter, why are they all over the churches? They package bishops, it backfired. Now themselves have become bishops, and they go to churches in a bid to win the votes of the people. They were trying to disenfranchise 80 million Nigerians, and they said that it is not a religious politics, it is not identity politics, it is people who are thinking. And I did a video clip some times back on the audacity of hypocrisy and hypocrisy of competence. When they flooded this idea of competence and they said that was the basis, I said to myself, if it was the basis, why didn't you appoint Rufai? Rufai was one of the leading persons that worked towards the emergence of the flag bearer. Rufai came from the Northwest, who have the highest vote in terms of population. But that is another problem that they have, because what we are hearing now is that the Northwest said for them to have been bypassed, that somebody will pay for it. It's not my problem. Now, let me even tell you this, Sean. We have even gone past the religious talk since. In the last few days, I've seen them going to TV to re-echo it again. And I can understand the strategy, because they have so many undeserving votes from the Northwest because of the crisis in the Northwest. So in order to harvest those votes, they want to spin up religious politics so that undeserving votes from the Northwest will vote them on the religious ground. But you can see that it is backfiring, because religious clerics have kicked against that. Prominent people in APC have kicked against that. In fact, let me tell you, Shehu, there are sitting governors and former governors that personally told me they kick against this. So this is reality check. And Nigerians are looking at it. And however you twist it, one fact that remains is that even little political parties that we call them mushroom, they have the sensibility of the kind of situation we are in the country to move. You know what Eisenhower said? Any political party that failed to carry in its very core the policy of doing what is right and what is moral, it is not a political party, it is a conspiracy to seize power. It appears that APC are conspiring
let me quickly,
to retain
Mr.
power.
Bwala. Yeah. So quickly, let me ask you, you have spoken on this program and you have condemned the PDP. In fact, you have referred to them as a failed political party that do not ever belong to governing Nigeria again. Those are some of the words you have used against the PDP. I'm wondering how you are able to, when you have made this switch now, what will you be telling Nigerians? Has the party changed since the last time you moved there?
What I would tell Nigerians is very simple and correct. I said things about PDP. I have no regret for what I said, because we see in part and prophesy in part. And some of the things I said, even some members of PDP have owned up to it. But you know what intriguing thing? PDP has been undergoing transformation, and you can see that evident in the way they do things. PDP is a party that is willing to change. They have never been afraid. If they say there is a convention, they will do it on that day. If they say there is this, they will do it on that day. APC is the only party that to conduct primaries will take eternity. If not because INEC is giving a deadline to some things, I am telling you, even the primaries of APC would not have been conducted now. But let me even say further, why am I with PDP now? The answer is simple. I said it the day I declare. One, because PDP, for now, is the party that clearly defines the path for a united Nigeria. Clearly, and there is no contest about that. So that is why I am supporting PDP. Two, PDP is the only party with the realistic chance of defeating APC. And on the evidence of stats and analytics, PDP right now is way ahead of APC in winning the election, and the APC people are aware. The third one, and the most important one, I joined PDP because I believe among the presidential candidates, Atiku Abubakar is one that possesses the most superior experience. This was a man in the first 4 years of their government with Obasanjo. He was practically the sitting president. When Obasanjo was going all over the world, was trying to gather a collaboration and consensus to get debt cancellation for Nigeria. Most of the institutions in Nigeria that are functioning today, which people are benefiting from, Atiku Abubakar helped in forming it. Even some of these rhetorics of corruption that they have been saying, if we live in a nation of democracy, a corrupt person is somebody who has been found guilty by a court of law. And even this charge of corruption, do you know that most of these presidential candidates are under investigation? In America, Joe Biden was investigated during the election. So we are no longer moved by the rhetoric of corruption. If somebody, Obasanjo has investigated Atiku more than any other person. Ribadu was all over the map to fetch evidence. Until today, no indictment, no conviction. But we keep spinning this idea of corruption. Do you know that the corruption that was discovered in the last 7 years in this government is far worse than the corruption that has been discovered from 1999 till date? Dasuki was $2 billion that we took almost 6 years to investigate. $2 billion. In this government, institutions of government, if you carry 2 corruption allegations, will beat the $2 billion. So this rhetoric should stop. We are going beyond that. We are looking at the unity of Nigeria, rescuing Nigeria from what is happening. Has it ever happened in Nigeria that a commander-in-chief of the armed forces, a president, is one? The word president comes from the word preside. You preside over the executive branch of government, and you are the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. A group of ragtag people on machine, saying they will abduct the president, and the people are still talking wherever they are. We need leadership that will hold people to account, leadership that direct our path, this country out of the woods. So this is the reason, and this is the resume for which I decided I will follow PDP and Atiku Abubakar. No man is perfect, no institution is perfect, no nation is perfect. And every country will come to a point in their national life where they do what they call forensic audit of the party that is in government and judge whether or not they have foot the bill. Shewun, where you are today, in the last 7 years, when you are holding your meetings, I've been hearing the sound of your voice. I could perceive fear when you talk about insecurity in Nigeria. And yet you are a journalist. You are not certain about your life. Everybody in Nigeria is not safe. National Assembly, some group, they went on recess because the seat of power is under threat. And we are saying Nigeria should not be given the opportunity to do referendum on APC. Let us be serious.
On a final note, we have not gotten into the campaign. I'm not even in the mood for the campaign conversation just yet. We're just looking at the appointments based on what happened today. And perhaps Nigerians are weighing their options and they're warming up to start hearing the rhetorics of how politicians and how they want to sell themselves. Now, the marketers have now been announced. That of the APC, as the Minister of State for Labor, Festus Keyamo, your senior, and the bar has been announced, and you perhaps will meet on the field and be able to trade ideas and wits on which party or which candidate is better for Nigerians. But if you look back to today you're speaking, should your candidate lose in this election, do you have any regrets?
No, I will have no regret. The most important decision I have made in my political life was that decision to resign from APC. I tell you this, and I tell you from the depth of my heart. I know the calls I got from every divide. I got calls from Muslim clerics, Islamic clerics, from leaders. The most important decision, it reminds me of the scripture that says, who knows whether God has brought you to a kingdom such as this. You also mentioned Festus Keyamo, somebody I respect very dearly, who is my senior at the bar. But you need to know that the roles we are both playing for our political party is not in the court of law. So that yes at the bar will not matter. It will be a game of idea, superior idea, and facts, not rhetoric, not fighting, no anything. Facts to be dished out with respect and with a sense of appeal to the Nigerian people. Ultimately, it is the Nigerian people that will decide. But I want to say it like I've always said in your program, Sheon, tonight, that PDP will win the presidential election.
I said maybe it's not the time for us to start talking about those campaign issues, but as you're talking about corruption issues and the roles that Atiku Abubakar played in the Obasanjo period and all of that, some Nigerians perhaps will, I mean, maybe you have not even gotten to work just yet to make your research, and perhaps they might want to know the PTDF and the role Atiku Abubakar played. If you have 30 seconds to touch on that, we'll be glad to hear from you before we wrap up on this conversation.
In fact, Sean, I am very delighted, and I will delve on not just the PTDF, on forensic analysis on all the roles that Atiku Abubakar played with the various agencies and departments of government that were kept under his care. And in the coming days, Nigerians will get to know. The problem we have in Nigeria is that sometimes sensation overcloud facts and overcloud evidence. But in the coming days, and like you said, when campaign starts, we are going to bring verifiable facts, not go and verify and it cannot be verified. Or we have inherited. That day, the days of we have inherited is over. We need to save Nigeria. We need to rescue Nigeria.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Daniel Bwala. We will talk. And one thing that Channels Television here stands for is the issues. We will let Nigerians know the issues, and they will get to have those facts as the instrument they will take to the polls. Thank you so much, Mr. Bwala, the brand new spokesperson of Atiku Abubakar himself and Senator Dino Malayo. We thought that both of you were going to appear tonight on the program tonight, but due to some technical issue, Senator Malayo is not able to appear. But thank you so much indeed for your time. We take a break, everyone, and when we return, we will have to break down for you some of the figures that you need to know to arm yourself with as we go into the 2023 election. And we go to the touch screen in a moment and give you some of the new figures as far as those who have registered. How many voters do we have now in Nigeria? As INEC has closed the voter registration, we can now for sure give you an understanding. And I'll be joined by Mr. Samson Itodo and Mr. Judy Ojo, and we're breaking down things for you right here on the program. Stay with me. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on the program. Of course, I told you earlier that we'll be bringing to you some figures that you need to know as far as the next election is concerned, the 2023 election, where the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has closed the voter registration process. And so far, we have over 12,000 completed registration across the online and the physical platforms, which brings us to the fact that we had in 2019 84 million registered voters. So if you do the mathematics, this gives you 96 million voters in Nigeria as we have it today. Now, let me give you an understanding of what could happen. Out of these figures, these 12 million figures that you're seeing right here, it might not end there because the INEC has a process of pruning those figures in the sense that it has to go through its post-business rule and a few other processes that will bring out the possible double registration and all of that. We'll break down some of these figures. Let me allow my guest tonight on this segment to come into the fray. I have joining me a political analyst, Mr. Judy Ojo. Thank you so much indeed for coming on tonight.
My pleasure. Good evening, Nigeria.
And I've joining us virtually Mr. Samson Itodo, who is the Executive Director of Yaga Africa Monitoring Election in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you so much, Samson, for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening.
First and foremost, this figure, as far as I know, Mr. Ojo, 12,298,944. INEC says this is not going to be the final figure. It has to go through the post-business, through the APC. That's what I was going to try to remember, the APC, and try to prune it down, which if you have any double registration and all of that, it might bring this down. How much it will bring it down to, we may not know. But give me an understanding of what this means. Are you impressed? 12 million over the last 1.5 years.
Well, yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Shem. 12,298,944 is the current figure, but I'm scared about what the percentage by which this may come down. Why am I scared? In March or thereabout this year, INEC came out to say between June and December 2021, after running the APC, that's automatic biometric fingerprint identification system on the registrants, they discovered 45% of the registrants, 45 is very significant.
That's very significant, yeah.
45% of the registrants have invalid registration. And what does that mean? Invalid means you either did not complete your registration or you engage in multiple registration. So if in 6 months we have 45% of that having invalid registration, we can also postulate that between January and July 31st, 2022, even if it's not as high as 45%, we may be looking at maybe 25 to 30% of the registrants also becoming invalid.
Yeah. So, Samson, what are your thoughts before I go into the next set of information?
Well, thanks. I agree with Jide. I don't think that, I think first it's premature that we have, we're celebrating this figure. I'll say, yes, it's positive that you have 12 million, but it's definitely not going to be the exact figure. By the time INEC conducts, the cleanup of the figures. And why is this important? This is important to enhance the credibility of the voters register, because you're going to have multiple registrants. You have things like double entries. You would also have incomplete data. So it is important that INEC, cleans up the data, but we have to wait for INEC to release the actual figure. The chairman, I understand today, while he was speaking at this conference organized by the police on election security, said they are projecting to have about 95 million registered voters ahead of the next election. So that's also very high, but 12.2 million is commendable. We should celebrate it, but it's, again, a bit premature. Let's wait to see what the actual figure will come to, because there was misinformation. Because why this is important is there was misinformation out there about the registration process, where candidates and politicians were urging people who were already on the voters register, to go and register or either activate their PVC. There were all these sorts of misinformation. So that also influenced people who were already on the voters register to go and re-register. There were also cases where, just low voter education. People didn't understand the process. And so they went to the INEC registration centers to register. So those people need to be eliminated from the register. But I just hope that we don't record about 45% invalid registrations, because if that happens, then it will be unfortunate for the entire process.
So, guys, look at this. Interestingly, yourself and Samson, you're wearing clothing that I like. But let's make sense of it. So, when we analyze the election figures right here in Nigeria, we talk about the top 5 states and sometimes the top 10 states. So these are the top states that I have highlighted here. And these states where you have the highest registration. Lagos takes the lead with 585,629, followed by Kano State. One way that Lagos is ahead of Kano. It will be interesting to see the final figure of some of these states. And these are the suspects, the usual suspect, except for Delta. We cannot find a Bauchi here. Bauchi usually belongs in the top 5, but he's not here. In terms of the new registration, Lagos, Kano, Delta, Kaduna, and Rivers. Rivers coming below Kaduna, interestingly, this time around. What are your thoughts, Jide?
Again, this figure looks very interesting because they are in the bracket of 500,000 and 400,000. But what we garnered is that Lagos, as present, is necking 7 million overall. That's if you had what we had in 2019 to this figure. I read that Lagos should be necking about 7 million registrants. But this doesn't really appeal to me as much as how many of the overall will collect their PVC. Because that's the determinant.
Absolutely.
This is good. It looks good. It shows that...
prospects.
Prospects. And it also shows that, look, these are cosmopolitan environments.
Absolutely.
Cosmopolitan Lagos, Kano, Delta, Kaduna, and of course, Atiku Abubakar should be happy that Delta is one of the states
because he has
his running mate is from Delta, and of course
Tinubu might be happy too.
Tinubu would definitely be happy.
Kwangwase might be happy.
Of course, I wish I see Anambra here, but that's not to say Anambra does not matter. But Rivers. So let's look at the party in power in this. Since we are discussing elections and votes. APC is in Lagos.
Yes.
Kano APC. Delta PDP. Kaduna APC. Rivers PDP. So it's 3 against 2. But this is just for CVR. This is just for continuous voter register. We need to do cross-matching. Add this figure to that of 2019, and then that gives us a global picture, holistic view of who comes first, second, third, and then you can do proper ranking. But that, again, cannot be done now because until that ABCs is run and INEC comes forward with final figures for each of the states, it will be premature to celebrate anything.
I mean, but so now we're looking at the prospect. What the figures can give us, and politicians perhaps also will be looking at these numbers and what they can do with it. Samson, are you happy? Because I know you and your team, you went to some of these cities and you went out. One you may not be happy about is going to be the next slide, but give me your understanding about these 5 top states that I've highlighted here and what it means for the next election in 2023.
Well, thanks, Sheon. I'm not surprised with the 5 states. It's just that if you look across the states, there are 2 regions that are not represented. One is the North Central, the second is the Southeast. And so that gives you a sense of how voters are also responding. But it doesn't also give you a clear picture, because if you look across, the entire the turnout for the CVR based on these current figures, you discover that some states also recorded over 30 to 40% increase in the turnout for the CVR. So if you look at the entire map, you discover that of the 36 states plus the FCT, there are 11 states that recorded less than 300,000 turnout. Those states are Ekiti, Ondo, Zamfara, Jigawa. The FCT is part of that, as well as Gombe. But if you look at the map, what it simply tells you is that these 5 states, 3 of them are actually swing states when it comes to elections. But the fundamental issue is the turnout, and like Jide talked about the PVC, if you look at the general turnout for elections in these states, it's been abysmally poor. So you look at Lagos, for instance, in the presidential elections and the governorship elections, the turnout for those elections in 2019 was less than 30%. Now that you have a presidential candidate from Lagos, will that change the dynamic? Will that increase turnout? Again, only the future will tell. If you look at Rivers, you look at Delta, you look at Kano, all those 5 states. But I think that when we look across the country, you will now discover that there are some states that recorded some high turnout. Again, the baseline figure that we are using has not been reviewed. And so maybe the trends and the analysis might change after INEC has conducted a cleanup of the current figure.
Even if it will change something, these are the baselines. So if anything will change, they will be drawing from these baselines, and the percentages might have an overall picture, not really weighing down on one state over the other. But the one I told you about earlier that you may not be happy about something is this. You did a lot of work in FCT. You brought a lot of artists to come out for them to campaign. You got 211,000 response. That's good news, isn't it? But not as much, because they rank one of the 5 states, well, 5 states in the FCT is not a state, but well, we can categorize it in this sense, with the lowest registrants. What do you make of this, Samson, before I come to Jide?
Well, the FCT has always been, like this. And why is this the case? I'd say that, yes, the youth vote count mobilization contributed in no small measure to the turnout, not just in the states where the concert held, but across the country. The FCT here is very cosmopolitan, but there were also cases, and I tell you, there were registration that was conducted for people who wanted to vote in other parts of the country. Some people traveled, to other parts of the country, their state of origin, to get registered. In fact, on Sunday, because I was on the field when the registration ended, up till about 11:30 p.m., and I tell you that there were people from other parts of the country who came to register in the FCT, but were registering to vote in other parts of the country. So I'm not sure that figure is captured under FCT. So by the time you put those figures, you discover that this figure might also increase. And so I'm not really bothered about, this figure. The FCT residents could have done better.
Yeah. From our understanding, one of the things that I know will bedevil a place like FCT. FCT, like any other state, you can say is a civil service state. In that sense, you refer to states like Ekiti, Oshun, Kwara. Sometimes they have been tagged as predominantly civil servant states. FCT is one of those. And if you look at the figure from 2019, and even now, you see a very low number in occupational distribution of registration and PVC collection. You see that civil servants have the lowest in terms of occupation of those who come out to collect their PVC or even vote. What are your thoughts on the lowest state with the lowest registrants?
Thanks. I was itching to say something. I'm not surprised about FCT for simple reason that FCT has 2 types of population. There is a day population and there is a night population in FCT. If you go by day population, you will think FCT is heavily populated because people come from neighboring states to work from Niger State, from Kogi State, from Nasarawa State. So when you go by their population, the chaotic traffic you see, particularly at the entry points, these 3 entry points, just gives you a false sense.
An illusion.
That an illusion that FCT is heavily populated. But we know that during celebrations, we know that during weekends, that FCT, because of high cost of accommodation, is thinly, underpopulated.
And during the holidays, you see the way and manner people travel, go to the car parks, even the weekends.
And it happens during elections.
Yeah.
It happens most during elections.
Travel a lot to go
people will travel, choose the election period to even travel because, like we said, almost half of the population working in our FCT are non-resident. They come from outside. But let me quickly speak to my not being surprised about Imo. Imo recorded a lot of violence during the continuous registration. One guy was killed, and a couple of polling units were destroyed by unknown gunmen in Imo. And that possibly scared a lot of people from getting involved in registering to vote, because that is one state with, which I will classify as a flashpoint among all the states. Imo in the southeast seems to be the epicenter of unknown government, and that could have affected the...
Yeah, let me move swiftly because I have some more information that we need to share. So if you look at it in 2019, this is very important. Samson Jude, look at this very carefully. And this is where I want Nigerians of 18 and 35 years old to listen carefully, because tonight I will do an advocacy I'm not being paid to do, but as a citizen, I will do it. Whoever wants to listen should listen tonight because it's very important. The power is in your hand. Look at this figure, Jude. 51% of the registered voters are between the age of 18 and 45. And if you look at it, between 35 and 49 are between the 29.97%. So if you put this together, you can simply say those who have the landlords of Nigeria voting population are between the age of 18 and 49. So they are very significant. These are just pottery. The people from 50 to 70 years, they just about 18% or less than 20%. So flip that, Samson and Jide, look at this. To 2022, what we have, still maintaining, in fact, it's even higher. Look at it, 18 to 43 years, we have 71%. It shows that there was something that happened in terms of voter education that has made this group of people, in fact, this has also increased if you look at it. Yeah. So they have made a chunk of the voting population. Do you see them coming out on the day of election?
Very well. Look, 2023 elections will be decided by Nigerian youth. There is no two way about it. Two factors which I will quickly mention. First is the signing into law of Electoral 2022 on that February 25th, 2022, Friday, February. That significant piece of legislation. As if you look at the number of registrants from June 28th, when INEC started, June 28, 2021, when INEC commenced the voter registration, continuous voter registration, down to December. If you look at the total number of registrants within that period, and the registrants between February and July 31st, you see almost double. And it's not just a last-minute rush thing. It is just because people now believe that their votes will count. Yeah. Given the one, infusion of technology. Two, the issue of funding for election. Three, the capacity of the commission to also right certain wrongs that their returning officer, collation officer may commit on the field. But more importantly, and this brings us to the second part, is the belief that they have a candidate that is worthy of occupying the Aso Rock. And that is during the primaries. The outcome of the primaries, one way or the other, has convinced many youths that, look, we have somebody that we want to bring. And maybe Ekiti and Osun election also show them that their votes are possible. That becomes an auxiliary factor too. This is also very important, but Samson, we just have about 60 seconds to close this program. I would like your thoughts, but if you look at 2019, look at gender distribution. The usual thing that women are the most of the voters. No, that is not correct. In 2019, 52% of male registrants. In 2022, this is what we have. There are more male registrants than female. Samson, 30 seconds, and we need to wrap up.
Well, Seun, the truth is Nigerians believe their votes will count in 2023, and so we expect that there will be high turnout, particularly of young people, as you can see from the voter registration. The NSAS protest, really inspired a lot of young people. We saw petitions, written to INEC. Over 35,000 people signed a petition for INEC to commence voter registration. So Nigerian youths have registered, and they are going to make this election, really about them. But the truth is, to make these numbers count, they need to collect their PVCs. INEC needs to produce those PVCs for the registered voters, and those PVCs need to get to the voters in due time, because without their PVCs, they cannot cast their vote. And so as we look at these figures, let's also impress it on INEC to make those PVCs available so people can collect their PVCs and cast their vote, because the next election will be determined by young people, it will be determined by technology, and more importantly, it will be determined by Nigerians who are frustrated, disenchanted with leadership failure in Nigeria today.
Thank you, Samson. Jude, I was going to point out, and this is my point right here. So these people and these people, these two group of people, Jude and Samson, and this is my closing moment. I must sincerely thank you, Jude, for coming on, and Samson for coming on. If you're watching me tonight, know that you are real owners of Nigeria. Don't let anybody deceive you, because if your vote counts, if you see this population and the possibility, the potential that you have, you know that the power is in your hands and you need to take it. Leave those phones on election day. Go to the polling unit and exercise the power that you have as the real owners of Nigeria. I must sincerely thank everyone for watching tonight. Thank you so much, Judy and Samson. That's our show for today. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimaloe. Bye for now.